The galaxy was a vast place, filled with countless species, all struggling for power and dominance. Among these, the Galactic Empire stood at the top. They had conquered world after world, ruling with an iron fist. Their ships were the size of moons, their weapons could obliterate planets, and their technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. But that didn't matter to Earth. The United Terran Confederation, UTC, formed after centuries of war and division on Earth, had grown stronger. Despite their lack of size and resources compared to the Empire, humans had something the Empire didn't: resilience. And now, the Empire had made a grave mistake. The message from the Galactic Emperor arrived on Earth's biggest communication relay. It was clear, cold, and final. To the Terran Confederation, the Emperor's voice echoed across every screen on Earth. Your technology has reached a level we find unacceptable. You are a threat to the peace of the galaxy. Surrender to the Empire and become part of our vast empire. Refuse, and we will wipe your world from existence. The people of Earth watched in stunned silence. The Empire had always been distant, a looming force in the galaxy, but now they were threatening the one thing humanity held dear: their home. Across the planet, news outlets broadcasted the message. Political leaders gathered in secret meetings. The president of the United Terran Confederation, Evelyn Brooks, stared at the holographic display in front of her. The Empire was known for its overwhelming power. They had conquered entire star systems without breaking a sweat. Could humanity really stand against them? We can't just surrender, she said, her voice firm. We fought too hard to get here, to give up now. Earth will never kneel before anyone. Her generals and advisors agreed, but there was fear in their eyes. They all knew how powerful the Empire was. No one had ever dared challenge them. We'll need time, said Admiral Lucas James, one of humanity's greatest military minds. Time to prepare our defenses, to understand what we're dealing with. We need to figure out how to fight them. Evelyn nodded. Agreed. But we also need to show the galaxy that we will not back down. We're humans. We fight for survival, no matter the odds. Across the world, humanity began to rally. People from all walks of life, scientists, soldiers, engineers, began working day and night. They knew they were outmatched. The Empire's fleet was already on its way, heading towards Earth at an alarming speed. Yet there was a sense of determination in the air. Earth's people weren't just going to sit by and let the Empire destroy everything they loved. In hidden laboratories and military bases, the best minds worked on a plan. Weapons that could stand against the Empire's mighty ships, technology that could turn the tide of battle. The best scientists in the world, many of whom had never worked together before, now had no choice but to pool their knowledge. And then there were the engineers, humanity's unsung heroes. They began to build massive warships, new forms of defense, and energy weapons that could rival the Empire's. But even with all this preparation, no one could deny the truth. The Empire was coming. And they were coming with a fury. Days passed as Earth's defenses were put in place. The United Terran Confederation made a final decision. They would not submit. They would fight. The Empire's fleet entered the solar system, led by a ship that dwarfed anything humanity had ever seen, a massive battleship called the Emperor's Wrath. The sheer size of it was enough to make anyone tremble, but humanity had no choice. They had to make their stand here and now. We will not go quietly, President Brooks said in a final speech before the cameras. This is our home, and we will fight with everything we have. The Empire may have the power, but we have something they can never understand: our will to survive. The battle had begun. But the question remained: could humanity's resolve and their newfound technology stand up to the might of the Galactic Empire? The first strike came faster than anyone had anticipated. Humanity had just begun to prepare for the Empire's arrival. In hidden space stations, Earth's military was making final adjustments to their defenses. Scientists worked around the clock to finalize their most powerful weapons. It was a race against time. but no one truly knew if humanity's efforts would be enough. The Empire's fleet, led by the massive dreadnought Emperor's Wrath, entered the solar system. From a distance, it looked like a dark, moving mountain, a looming shadow in space. The entire fleet was as large as an entire city, countless warships, each more powerful than any ship humanity had ever built. The Empire had arrived in full force. The first target was Titan, one of Saturn's moons. Titan was home to a major human colony, a bustling hub for scientific research and industry. It was also the first line of defense, a place where humanity had stationed some of its most advanced anti-spacecraft weapons. But the Empire was prepared. Their fleet descended like a storm, attacking without warning. The first blow was swift. The Emperor's Wrath fired a single shot from its main cannon, and Titan's defenses were gone in an instant. Buildings crumbled, and the moon's atmosphere was shattered, sending the colony into chaos. A massive explosion ripped through Titan's surface, lighting up the void of space. Thousands of civilians perished in the blink of an eye. Admiral Lucas James stood on the bridge of Earth's command ship, watching in disbelief as the destruction unfolded. The transmission from Titan's colony was cut off. The loss was devastating. "Admiral, Titan is lost," one of his officers said, the sorrow clear in their voice. Lucas' face remained grim. They had known Titan would be a target, but no one had expected the Empire to strike so brutally. The Empire's power was overwhelming, and for a moment, it felt like humanity's fight was already lost. But then, Admiral James heard a voice, calm and determined. "We will not surrender," President Evelyn Brooks said through the communication line. "We cannot let Titan's loss be in vain. Humanity will fight back." Lucas nodded. He knew what he had to do. "Prepare the fleet. We fight back, no matter what," he ordered. It was clear that Earth's military was still far weaker than the Empire's forces, but there was one thing humanity had in abundance: ingenuity. They had been building secret weapons, weapons that could change the tide of battle. While the Empire's ships were powerful, they were also large, cumbersome, and predictable. Humans had learned to fight with creativity, to use their minds to outsmart a stronger enemy. In secret laboratories, Earth's brightest minds had created Project Aegis. It was a new kind of weapon, something the Empire had never seen before. A hybrid of alien and human technology, it had the potential to disable the Empire's ships in ways no one had thought possible. The first test of Project Aegis came when a small Terran fleet, led by Lucas James' flagship, the Vigilant, engaged a group of Empire ships near the asteroid belt. The Empire's ships were massive and heavily armored, but the humans had something the Empire had never expected: speed. As the Empire's fleet moved in, the human ships used their advanced AI-driven tactics to move in unpredictable patterns. They avoided the Empire's powerful laser beams and missiles, launching strikes at weak points in the enemy ships. The new weapons, powered by Project Aegis, disabled several smaller Empire vessels with a single shot. For the first time since the war began, the Empire was on the defensive. The human fleet managed to inflict real damage, even though they were still outnumbered. The Empire's commanders were not prepared for the boldness of humanity's attack. "Admiral, we've disabled 3 enemy ships," one of Lucas' officers reported. Lucas smiled for the first time in days. "Keep pushing. We've only begun." But just as humanity seemed to have gained an advantage, the Empire's flagship, the Emperor's Wrath, unleashed its most devastating weapon yet, a massive energy wave that tore through space. It was aimed at Earth itself, with the power to destroy the planet. "Brace for impact," Lucas shouted, his heart racing. The human fleet had no chance to stop the weapon in time. Earth's defenses were nowhere near powerful enough to stop it. The Emperor's Wrath was coming for Earth, and it seemed there was nothing humanity could do to stop it. Yet, even in the face of such overwhelming destruction, humanity's resolve remained unbroken. "Prepare the countermeasure." President Brooks' voice echoed through the command ship speakers. "We will not let Earth fall." Humanity's greatest fear was now staring them in the face. The Emperor's Wrath, the massive flagship of the Galactic Empire, was charging up its most powerful weapon, a deadly energy wave capable of obliterating Earth. The entire planet could be wiped out in a matter of minutes. As the weapon charged, a tense silence fell over Earth's command center. Admiral Lucas James stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, watching as the energy beam began to glow brighter, gathering power. He knew that if they didn't act now, it would be the end. He looked around the bridge at his crew, seeing the fear in their eyes, but also the determination. "Admiral," one of his officers said, her voice shaky, "we can't stop it. The Emperor's wrath has too much power. We have no way of countering it." But Lucas wasn't ready to give up. He glanced toward the back of the room, where a team of scientists had been working on humanity's secret weapon, Project Aegis. This new weapon, a combination of human and alien technology, was their last hope. It was designed to neutralize the Empire's most powerful attacks, but they had never tested it on such a large scale. "Activate Project Aegis," Lucas ordered, his voice calm but firm. The lead scientist, Dr. Mia Sanchez, stood at the console, her hands flying over the controls. "Activating now, Admiral. It's our only chance." As the scientists worked quickly, the human fleet began to move into position. They weren't big enough to take on the Empire's entire fleet, but they had a plan. The key to survival was using speed and unpredictability. The Vigilant led the way, darting in and out of the larger enemy ships, dodging laser fire and missile blasts. Suddenly, a high-pitched whine filled the air as the Project Aegis weapons activated. A pulse of energy shot from Earth's fleet, arcing through space toward the Emperor's wrath. The pulse collided with the energy beam just as it was about to fire, sending shockwaves through the vastness of space. The result was an explosion of light, a brilliant flash that temporarily blinded both fleets. When the light faded, the Emperor's wrath was no longer a threat. The energy beam had been neutralized, leaving the massive flagship of the Empire seemingly crippled. The weapon was offline. The entire Empire fleet froze in shock. "We did it," one of the officers on the Vigilant shouted. But Lucas wasn't celebrating. They had only bought themselves time. The Empire wasn't going to give up that easily. The Emperor's wrath was damaged, but it wasn't destroyed. And the rest of the Empire's fleet was still massive. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, something unexpected was happening. Word of the human victory spread like wildfire among the oppressed alien species that had long been under the Empire's rule. The Empire's brutal tactics had earned them many enemies over the years, but none had ever been able to stand up to them, until now. A group of alien refugees, survivors of the Empire's harsh reign, made contact with Earth. They had been watching the battle from the shadows, and they were ready to offer their support. Humans, their leader, a gray-skinned alien named Zira, said through a communication link, "You have given us hope. The Empire is not invincible. We are ready to fight alongside you. Tell us what we can do." The message was broadcast to Earth, sparking a sense of unity and strength among humanity. The oppressed alien species had their own weapons, their own skills, and their own knowledge of the Empire's weaknesses. Together, they could form a force powerful enough to challenge the Empire's rule. President Evelyn Brooks was the first to speak. "We will not fight this war alone," she said, her voice strong and unwavering. "The Empire may have its vast fleet, but we have something more powerful, the courage and strength of those who have been oppressed for too long." Back on the battlefield, the Empire's commanders scrambled to respond to the unexpected turn of events. The human fleet, now reinforced by their new alien allies, began to push back. Ships from Earth and its new allies moved together, a coordinated force that struck with speed and precision. They were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for freedom. The Emperor's wrath, still damaged but far from out of the fight, began to reposition, preparing for another assault. The battle was far from over, but humanity and its allies had something the Empire didn't: the will to fight. "We're not just defending Earth anymore," Admiral James said, his voice filled with a newfound confidence. "We're fighting for the galaxy." The battle was far from over, but humanity had shown the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated. The Empire had thought it could crush Earth with one swift blow. But they had failed. And now, humanity was not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something much greater. The Emperor's wrath limped through space, heavily damaged but still operational. The Empire's fleet, once confident in its dominance, was now scrambling to regroup. The human fleet, though outnumbered, was proving to be more than a match for them. What the Empire didn't understand was that the strength of humanity didn't come from size or strength alone. It came from the ability to adapt, to innovate, and to never give up. On Earth, President Evelyn Brooks watched the progress of the battle from her command center. News from across the solar system was pouring in. Humanity was winning skirmishes, pushing back the Empire's forces from key positions. The alien species that had once been under the Empire's control were rising up as well, inspired by the courage of the humans. "They are not just fighting for Earth," one of her advisors said. "They are fighting for the freedom of the galaxy." And it was true. The Empire's brutal rule over countless planets had sparked a flame in the hearts of many. Alien species who had long suffered under the Empire's oppression now saw humanity as their beacon of hope. They had never believed anyone could stand against the Empire's might, but now they knew better. Humanity's message of resistance spread across the stars. Broadcasts went out, not just to the colonies but to every corner of the galaxy. Earth was no longer just a planet. It had become a symbol of defiance. The message was simple: if humanity can fight the Empire, so can you. As humanity's allies grew, so did their strength. The human fleet now consisted of not only Terran ships, but also vessels from the alien species who had joined the fight. The former slaves of the Empire brought their own technology, their own weapons, and their own knowledge of the Empire's weaknesses. Together, they formed a united front, a force that the Empire had never seen before. Admiral Lucas James stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, watching as the newly formed fleet moved through space. The Vigilant had become a symbol of humanity's resolve, and Lucas had earned the respect of his crew and allies alike. They had shown the Empire that their might was not enough to crush a people who refused to bow. "We have to strike now," Lucas said, turning to his officers. "The Empire will be looking to regroup. If we hit them hard now, we can shatter their command structure." The officers nodded. They had no time to waste. The Empire's flagship, the Emperor's Wrath, was still functional, and the rest of the fleet was regrouping, preparing for a counterattack. But the longer the Empire took, the more time humanity and their allies had to strengthen their forces. Back on Earth, President Brooks was coordinating the next phase of the plan. They had learned valuable information from their new allies, intelligence about the Empire's weaknesses, how their fleet communicated, how their ships were powered, and where the vulnerable spots were in their command structure. "We'll hit their supply lines," President Brooks ordered. "If we cut off their resources, we can cripple their ability to keep fighting." The strategy was risky, but it was their best chance. The Empire relied on its vast supply chains to fuel its war machine. Disrupting those supplies would force the Empire to retreat or face defeat. The human fleet, along with their alien allies, began their assault on the Empire's supply lines. They struck quickly and with precision, hitting supply ships, refueling stations, and storage facilities. It wasn't a direct confrontation with the main fleet, but it was a blow that the Empire couldn't afford to ignore. Every ship and station they destroyed weakened their enemy, and with each victory, humanity and their allies grew stronger. "We're making progress," Admiral James reported. "Their supply chains are breaking down. The Empire's fleet is losing momentum." But just as they began to celebrate their success, a new threat emerged. The Empire had begun assembling a new fleet, a much larger one. The Emperor, enraged by the losses, was calling in reinforcements from every corner of the galaxy. The next battle would be their biggest yet. "We've delayed them," President Brooks said, her voice steady. "But we have to be ready. The next battle will decide everything." Humanity had proven its ability to stand up to the Empire, but the final confrontation was approaching. The galaxy was watching, and everyone knew that the fate of the universe would be determined by the actions of a small, determined group of people who had refused to be conquered. It was no longer just about Earth. It was about freedom. And humanity was ready to fight for it. The final battle was upon them. Humanity had fought hard, alongside their new alien allies, pushing back the Empire's forces at every turn. The Empire, once thought to be invincible, had been shaken. But now, the Emperor had gathered his full strength. His fleet was massive, a wall of warships stretching across space. The Empire was ready to crush Earth and its rebellious allies once and for all. On Earth, President Evelyn Brooks stood before a large screen in the war room, her face grim. The human fleet, joined by alien ships, was preparing for the most important fight of their lives. The Empire's flagship, the Emperor's Wrath, was at the front, flanked by hundreds of warships. The situation was dire, but Evelyn knew that Earth's only chance of survival was to strike with everything they had. "We've come this far," Evelyn said, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "We cannot back down now. This is the fight for the galaxy's future. We fight, not just for Earth, but for every planet the Empire has ever enslaved." Admiral Lucas James, leading the human fleet from the Vigilant, nodded. His face was tired, but the fire in his eyes burned bright. He had been through so much, but now, at the edge of the final battle, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. "We have the weapons. We have the strategy," Lucas said. "But most importantly, we have each other. This is our chance to end this war. We fight with everything we've got." The fleets moved into position. The vastness of space stretched out before them, a silent witness to the coming storm. The Empire's warships moved with terrifying precision, their guns primed and ready. The human fleet, though smaller, was fast and well coordinated. They were determined to win, even if the odds were against them. As the battle began, the first wave of attacks from the Empire hit hard. Energy blasts streaked through space, aimed at the human ships. But the humans were ready. They danced through the fire, using their agility and speed to dodge the Empire's attacks. The alien ships fought alongside them, launching their own devastating strikes. Together, they worked as one, united against the Empire's overwhelming power. The Vigilant led the charge, weaving through enemy ships with surprising agility. Admiral Lucas James stood at the front, his hands gripping the command chair as he gave orders, his mind focused. Each move he made could mean the difference between life and death. He knew the stakes. "Target their engines," Lucas ordered. "If we can disable their ships, we'll slow them down." The human and alien fleets launched a series of coordinated attacks, targeting the engines of the Empire's warships. Explosions rocked the space around them as the Empire's ships began to falter, their movements growing slower and more erratic. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Brooks watched the battle unfold. She knew that this was humanity's last chance to secure its future. If they lost here, the Empire would return to finish what it started. "Send the signal," Evelyn said, turning to her communications officer. "Let every corner of the galaxy know that humanity is fighting for their freedom." The message was broadcast to every star system, every rebel group, every oppressed alien species. Humanity was no longer fighting alone. The message was clear: stand with us, or fall under the Empire's boot. The time to fight is now. Back in the battle, the Empire's flagship, the Emperor's Wrath, fired its main cannon, a beam of energy that could wipe out entire fleets. It was aimed directly at the Vigilant. "Brace for impact," Admiral James shouted. The beam struck the human flagship, sending a shockwave through space. The Vigilant shuddered, but it didn't break. Lucas and his crew held on, pushing through the damage. The Vigilant wasn't finished yet. "We're still in the fight," Lucas called. "Keep firing. We're not done." The human fleet pushed forward, taking advantage of the Empire's temporary disarray. They launched a final wave of attacks. The combined strength of humanity and their alien allies struck at the heart of the Empire's fleet. One by one, Empire ships began to fall, their massive forms exploding into the void. The Emperor's wrath took a direct hit to its power core, and with a deafening explosion, the flagship was destroyed. It wasn't over yet. The Empire still had a fleet, and they were fighting back harder than ever. But the tide had turned. The Empire had lost its leader, and its forces were no longer unified. The remaining ships scattered, no longer fighting as one. Back on Earth, President Brooks allowed herself a moment of relief. The war had cost them so much, but they had done it. Earth had survived. The galaxy had been given a chance at freedom. "We did it," she whispered, a smile breaking through her weary expression. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity had proven that, no matter the odds, they would always fight for what was right. For freedom, for survival.